So we'll look at back on daf bet Amud Aleph at Tosfot Dibor Marchiel Meaimatai, which we didn't do at the beginning because it really bases itself on a lot of the sugyot that we did subsequently. So Tosfot begins Piresh Rashi Ve'anan heichi karinan mi ba'ojom ve'ein anu mamtinin l'tzedek kochavim. How is it that us, Anan, like Anachnu, heichi karinan mi ba'ojom, how could we read Shema while it is still daytime? Ve'ein anu mamtinin l'tzedek kochavim, and we don't wait until after tzedek kochavim. Since the Mishnah says that Shema has to be said after the Kohanim eat the Truma, which means Tzedek Kochavim, and there is no machloket. Everyone says Shema at night has to be said after Tzedek Kochavim. How can we not do that? Apparently the minhag was that they would say Mariv and Shema before Tzedek Kochavim. Kedim Mefarish b'Gemara, like the Gemara explains that Tzedek Kochavim is the time. Al Kain Piresh Rashi. Therefore, Rashi explains Shekriyat Shema El Hamita Ikar. Therefore, Rashi says that the main time that we fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema is actually Al Hamita. Like many of us thought at the beginning, actually, that the main fulfillment of Kriyat Shema is Kriyat Shema Al Hamita. Vehu la'achar tzedek kochavim, because most people go to sleep after Tzedek Kochavim, after it gets dark out. Then Rashi also says, "V'hachi ita b'Yushalmi." This is what the Yushalmi says. Im kara kodem lachein lo yatsa. The Yushalmi says about our Mishnah that it said after, Kohanim nechasim lachol b'Shematzah Tzedek Kochavim. The Yushalmi, Talmud Yushalmi says that Im kain lama. If you read beforehand, Im kara kodem lachein lo yatsa, you not fulfill your mitzvah. Im kain lama anu mitzpalel Kriyat Shema beveit HaKnesset. So what's the purpose for us to say Kriyat Shema while we are in Beit Knesset, which is too early? Kedei la'amod b'tfila mitoch divrei Torah. So the Rishalmi says the reason why we say Shema in Shul is really not for the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema, because that's not fulfilled until Tzedek Kochavim, which would be later on when we say Kriyat Shema Lamita. The purpose of saying Shema in Beit Knesset is only la'amod b'tfilah mitoch divrei Torah, to learn Torah before davening, because it's good to learn Torah before we daven. We do it at Shachrit and we do it at Mariv. We say Ashrei before Mincha. We do it at Mincha with Ashrei, and we do it at Mariv with Kriyat Shema, and I suppose Shachrit also with Kriyat Shema. Actually, this reminds me of the Gemara in the 5th parak, which says Ein omdim litzpalel ela mitoch halacha psuka, that you're supposed to learn before you daven. So here also we say that you should learn Torah before davening. What's the learning of Torah? Kriyat Shema. Tema leperusho. Tosfot says that this is astonishing. Now, it's just interesting to note that Rashi quotes the Talmud Yerushalmi, which means that the custom of saying Mariv in Shul before nightfall was an old custom, not just in the time of Rashi, but in times of the Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi supports the idea that Shema is not fulfilled in Shul, but is fulfilled later on. Teima leperusho. This is astonishing. V'halo ein ha'olam regilim likrot samach l'shchiva ela parsha rishona. The olam, people, generally don't read more than one parsha of Kriyat Shema when they go to sleep. Kriyat Shema Lamita. Ve'im kain shalosh parshiyot hayel likrot. If the Kriyat Shema She'al Hamita was the main fulfillment of Kriyat Shema, then we should say all 3 paragraphs of Shema to get the whole thing. But most people only say the first paragraph of Shema when they say Kriyat Shema Lamita. Why do people say only the first 3 paragraphs only the first paragraph of Shema in the Kriyat Shema Lamita? Because that's what the Gemara says in Daf Samach, that you say Shema until V'hayayim Shemoah. So Tosfot asks, if Rashi is correct that the mitzvah of Shema is fulfilled al hamita, then it's a problem why we say only one paragraph with Kriyat Shema Meaimata. Now at this point, so Tosfot asks one question on Rashi. What's important to think about is what assumptions is Tosfot making in this question, and how might Rashi respond to this question. So please write down the question that Tosfot asks, and how you might respond if you were Rashi. Va'od kasha. Number 2, another question. Va'od kasha. Tzarich levarech b'kriyat shema shtayim lefaneha ushtayim la'achareha be'arvit. You have to say Brachot kriyat shema, 2 before and 2 after when it comes to Ma'ariv. That's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that the kriyat shema at night needs 2 brachot before and 2 after. What's the problem? According to Rashi, that's Kriyat Shema Lamita. What happened to Brachot Kriyat Shema? You're neglecting to fulfill the mitzvah of Brachot Kriyat Shema. Again, what's the question? How might Rashi respond? What assumption is Tosfot making? How might Rashi disagree? And why does Tosfot disagree with Rashi? V'od, thirdly, De'ota Kriyat Shema Samach Lamita Eina Ella B'Shvil HaMazikin. The only reason why we say Kriyat Shema Lamita is for the Mazikin. K'da'amar b'samuch, like we'll say later on daf Hey, V'yim Talmid Chacham Hu Ein Tzarich. Why does Tosfot quote the Talmid Chacham? Because actually the Talmud Bavli never says that the reason for Kriyat Shema Alamita is for Mazikin. It says the reason is because of the pasuk in Tehillim. But it does say that a Talmid Chacham is excused. Why would a Talmid Chacham be excused? The Yerushalmi said it's because of the Mazikin. The Bavli didn't say that. But the Bavli does say that a Talmid Chacham is excused. Why would he be excused? Talmid Chachamim have to do all the mitzvot in the Torah. Even a Talmid Chacham has to do the mitzvot. So apparently Tosfot thinks that Gemara indicates that the Bavli agrees with the Yerushalmi, that it's all because of Mazikin, and the Talmid Chacham is excused because, for whatever reason, either he is doing it because he's learning, or because he's not worried about Mazikin, whatever the reason, but Tosfot thinks that indicates that the reason for Kriyat Shema Lamita is because of Mazikin. So Tosfot's question is, how can the Talmid Chacham be excused if he needs to fulfill B'Shach B'cha? How can you say that the Kriyat Shema Shalamita is the Ikar if the Gemara says it's only because of the Mazikin? How might Rashi respond to this question? V'od Chasheh, and fourthly, De'im Kain Paskinan Ki Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. According to Rashi, what emerges is that we actually follow Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. De'amar Tfilot Be'emtza Tiknu. Pirush, which means Be'emtza Bein Shnei Kriyat Shema Bein Kriyat Shema Shel Shachrit Bein Kriyat Shema Shel Arvit. According to Rashi, it seems that we're passing like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that the tefillot are in between the shmas. The shema in the morning before Shemoneh Esrei, then the shachar min chamar of davening, and then the shema at the end with Kriyat Shema Lamita. And the shema in Ma'ariv is not really shema at all. So essentially, we follow Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Ve'anan kaimalan Rabbi Yochanan, but we are supposed to paskin like Rabbi Yochanan. To Amar lekaman, Ezeu ben Holam Haba, Zeh Sonech Gula Shel Avi L'Tfilah. Tosfot is bothered that according to Rashi we're following Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, but we're supposed to follow Rabbi Yochanan. In other words, we're supposed to do Smichat Gula L'Tfilah. We want to get Olam Haba like Rabbi Yochanan by doing Smichat Gula L'Tfilah. According to Rashi, you're not doing Smichat Gula L'Tfilah because Tfilah is in Beit Knesset and Shema is hours later Alamita. Shema, Tfilah is at 4:46 and Shema is at 4 a.m. when you finish studying. So these are the 4 questions that Tosfot has on Rashi. For each question, please summarize the question and think about how Rashi might respond to Tosfot's questions. Then Tosfot gives his answer. Lachein pireish Rabenu Tam. Therefore, Rabenu Tam has a different explanation. The Adarabba, It's the opposite. On the contrary. Kriyat Shema shel Beit HaKnesset Ikar. The Kriyat Shema of Shul is really the Ikar of Kriyat Shema. Even though it's early. V'im tomar heyach anu korin kol kach b'ojom. So I know you're going to ask, how can we do it too early? V'yesh lomar. T'kayim alon k'Reb Yehuda. The answer is that we follow Rabbi Yehuda. D'amar b'perek tfilat hashachar. Because Rabbi Yehuda says in perek tfilat hashachar, daf chav vav, Dizman tfilat hamincha ad plag hamincha. Tehainu echad asar sha'ot pachot reviyah. Umiyad kishayichle zman hamincha matchil zman arvit. Rabbi Yehuda, Tosfot pulls out Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, when discussing the davening, the tefillah of the day, says that mincha, this is the first mishnah in the fourth parak, Daf Chavav and Aleph, that tefillah mincha goes until plag mincha, as opposed to Chachamim who say it's until erev, until night. Rabbi Yehuda says it's until plag mincha, which is 11 hours less a quarter, 10 3/4 hours into the day out of 12. In other words, 1 1/4 hours showed zmaniyot before sunset is when mincha ends, and implicitly miyad kishayichle zman mincha matzil zman arvit. So implicitly arvit starts at an hour and a quarter before sunset, and even though the custom of people was to daven before Tzedek Chavim, they davened after plag mincha. And just like plag mincha works for tefillat arvit, it works also for the shema of b'shach b'cha. V'yim tomar heyach anu mitpalim tefillat mincha samach l'chashecha. How can we do mincha so late? V'yafilu la'achar plag mincha, even after plag mincha. In other words, this explains mar. But what about mincha? Now our mincha is too late. Yesh lomar t'kayim lan karabana da'amiz man tefillat mincha an erev. We follow chachamim who say mincha can go later. We pick and choose. V'yamina l'kaman, because the Gemara says later on Chav Zayin, hashad lo itmar hilchata lo kimar v'lo kimar, da'avad kamar avad da'avad kamar avin. The Gemara concludes on Chav Zayin that since we have no clear psak between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim, you can choose to follow whoever you want. So Tosfos ends up by saying you can pick and choose Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. With Mincha we sometimes follow Rabbi Chachamim. With Mar we follow Chachamim. We follow Rabbi Yehuda. And that's how it all works out. But really, the davening in shul is the ikar. That's when we do smichat klal tefillah. That's when we do the Brachot Kriyat Shema. And the Kriyat Shema Meaimata is just for Kriyat Shema Meaimata, just for protection against the mazikim. Here to summarize Tosfot's answer. What assumptions is he making to give his answer? Why might Rashi not agree with Tosfot's answer? Thank you for listening.